Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Takes and Licks podcast. I'm James. I am joined by Nash. We're not joined by a special guest today. It's another normal episode, so sorry those of you who are expecting another guest. There is not a guest, and definitely soon we will be getting more. It's kind of a continuous search for guests. Yeah, Nash, how you doing today?
Doing good, yeah, and we're working hard to get more guests out to all of you.
More episodes
in the near future. More episodes. School did just start for James and I, but we're getting back into the flow. The NFL season is less than a week away.
2 days.
Counting down the days. I mean, everybody knows that the full season doesn't really start till the full Sunday.
Whatever you want to say, buddy. That's what a casual fan would say.
And so we are going to talk first about some fantasy football, and then if we have some time, then we will get to potentially a little college football as well. We're going to start with obscure stat of the day.
Yep. Nash, you told me yours before the pod, so before you started recording, so just tell me it now again, or tell the audience now.
Yeah. So, not that obscure, but for those of you who don't know, the pride and joy of Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, had the greatest fantasy football season for a quarterback last season, breaking his own previous record by 0.3 points. And just in general, that season wasn't talked about enough. 5,200 yards, 45 total touchdowns, 12th all-time in touchdowns, for touchdowns in a season, 4th all-time passing yards in a season. It was a historic year. He obviously deserved the MVP.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's about it.
Yeah, it was all right season for him.
Casual.
Yeah, it's just a casual Mahomes season. What are the betting odds for an MVP this year? He's got to be like minus whatever.
I mean, it has to be him.
Yeah, it's got to be. But
although I bet Joe Burrow's up there.
Yeah, Allen's got to be up there too, but my stat
I'll look it up while you do your stat.
All right. Also fantasy football related. Not really like giving any insight to anything or really relating to a certain player, but it is just kind of relates to the randomness of fantasy football as a whole. And so basically CeeDee Lamb, Ramondre Stevenson, Dameon Pierce, Amari Cooper, and Tony Pollard all scored fewer than 5 PPR points in week 1 last season. And that could have been one team. And those were guys that went like Pollard probably didn't go that high, but like CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, like this kind of, it's not like the insane stats, sort of just like a microcosm to be very advanced for just kind of fantasy football as a whole. And literally you could draft all the right guys, you could do all the research you want, you do whatever, and in the end it really all just kind of is luck.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. I don't think you know what a microcosm is, but
yeah, I do.
We're good.
Buddy, you haven't taken...
You used it wrong.
No, I didn't.
Just for your information.
Buddy, you haven't taken Lang. You haven't graduated Lang.
Buddy, I still know what a microcosm is. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm not wrong.
Anyway, back to those MVP odds. It's actually closer than I would have thought. So it's Mahomes plus 600, then Burrow plus 700, and Allen 750. And then there's a little drop off. Herbert and Hurts are both 1,100. Lamar is 1,400. T-Law is 16 with Aaron Rodgers. Then Tua, Dak, Justin Fields, Goff, Deshaun Watson, and Geno. So not really any non-QBs looking to be in play right now.
Nash.
And if I was... What?
Sorry, go on. Go on. Sorry, I just want to correct our little debacle here. A microcosm is a small society, place, or activity which is all the typical features of a much larger one, and so seems like a small version of it. So in this case, the small society, the few players I just named have the typical features of fantasy football as a whole.
That's
and the
not
entire
true.
NFL. Oh my god!
Because they all were bad. So that's not
Yeah,
a
and
typical
all
feature.
players can be
That's
bad at
not
all times.
all
It's
players
a
can be bad,
microcosm of
but it
fantasy
wasn't.
football as a whole.
If they were all bad that
It's
same
okay to
week,
admit your
then in that
mistakes.
week that you're talking about, they weren't a microcosm for the rest of the league. If you picked like
They're
one player
microcosm for
who's good,
fantasy
one
football.
player who's bad, one player who's mid, then it's a microcosm of fantasy football.
Buddy, you're interpreting it wrong. These players that I chose.
No, I'm not. You just said it confusingly.
Okay,
Is
yeah. Now,
confusingly a
now you're
word?
backtracking.
Is
Now you're backtracking. Oh
is
yeah, let me make fun of you for one word.
is is
You
confusingly a
said it.
word?
I don't know. All right, this has turned into
Hold on.
English class here. AP Lang, which Nash has not
Shout out Miss
completed. I
Burford.
have completed. So if you're kind of wondering which
Doesn't
side you should
matter.
pick here.
It's not.
Anyways, you were mentioning MVP
You're
odds.
such a
Nash is
nerd.
trying to search up stuff to be right. He's wrong. It's okay. We'll move on though. Anyways.
He just bullies me. You bully me around. All right.
Go on, bud.
Anyway, James and I, about 2 hours ago, completed our what's it called? Car
Lee Carr. I'm
fantasy
not exactly
football
sure.
draft.
The Carmone Family
Um,
Fantasy Football League. My dad's best friend growing up. They've been doing this fantasy league for literally since they've done it on paper. And I've done it. This is my 4th year I've done it, maybe 5th, I forget. I think it's my 4th. This is Nash's 2nd.
this is
I
my
won.
second year.
Yep, I won the league last year. Not shockingly. Kind of confusing because the whole Damar Hamlin situation.
Was third.
Nash was 3rd. Nash was a very good
Well,
regular
yeah, you
season team,
have
then
one.
sold in the playoffs.
I made a bunch of profit though. Yeah.
Yeah, you did still make profit. That's the thing. You can do not win and still make profit.
But it's a little rich for my blood. But given that I almost doubled my money from last year, I felt obligated to join again, and it's a good time.
It is fun.
It
is very fun.
And the draft was interesting. So to preface, only 8 teams, because they can't get more people to cough up as much money as they're asking for because it's crazy. But it's also a 2-quarterback league. It is PPR.
Mm-hmm. And we're gonna just kind of go through the draft and then kind of highlight our teams. This might not relate to the audience so much, but it'll be kind of a collective fantasy football sort of preview. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
And obviously, if you have yet to have your fantasy football draft, hopefully you can use our opinions as something of a guide. We do tend to be pretty successful.
Yeah, we always are pretty successful.
Yeah.
To correct you, but yeah, and if you already done your draft, you can be reassured in your team, or maybe be like, "Dang, my team sucks."
Yeah.
Either one, but
like for instance, if you took Austin Eckler within the top 3, you don't know what you're doing. Shout out Green Machine. That's a bad pick.
I don't really hate that, dude. Because like he's bad, but like he's good at fantasy.
Yeah.
Like
for
really
those
good.
who don't know football, watch Austin Eckler play. He's not good. He might produce at a high clip. He's not very good at the game of football. And then, Quentin Johnston added to that offense. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, ideally healthy. Gerald Everett, I think, is underrated. There's just no way he sees the amount of production or the amount of touches that he got last year. I was on the fence between Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase. I understand guys taking quarterbacks early here.
It is a 2-quarterback league.
2-quarterback league, but with only 8 teams, a lot of depth still remains at the quarterback position. So no need to take him too high. I went with Christian McCaffrey over Jamar Chase, which I was pretty on the fence about. I wanted to take Jamar Chase, but I didn't have it in me.
Didn't have the guts.
Did not have the guts. McCaffrey is a much safer play. What else stands out to you about this first round, James?
What else stands out to me? I mean, my pick, you can see I highlighted here. Travis Kelce, 8th overall. There was a lot of pre-draft sort of freaking out about Kelce in the chat. Obviously, those who don't know, Kelce hyperextended his knee today in practice. Nothing long-term, though. most likely gonna miss Thursday's game against the Lions. Chance he might play. I'd honestly rather him just sit and not mess anything up. I'm sure you would too, probably Nash. But
Well, yeah, it depends.
yeah, it really depends on the extent. But yeah, I would have taken. I thought he was gonna go top 4, top 5, and I saw him drop at 8, and I was like, okay. But I wasn't expecting 3 quarterbacks to go first round. Like you said, Nash, 2 quarterback league. They're more valuable, but it is only 8 people. The turnaround's much faster, and so that was a little bit surprising. But overall, I do like Jalen Hurts over like
Yeah,
being the number 2 quarterback over Josh Allen
yeah,
too, because I think he's always just
yeah.
you know.
When his production is always going to be good because of the rushing upside.
Hmm.
I think I don't. Yeah, I don't love all the quarterbacks going early, and I think like I don't know. It's semantics because you got both of them, but like just rankings wise, I probably would have had Tyreek and then Travis Kelsey, and
Hmm.
then maybe Bijan ahead of Travis Kelsey. I think
Yeah, you
starting with a
love
tight end is a
Bijan.
bit risky.
Well,
But
I
yeah,
see that, but just the luxury of having like a
the
sure,
best one, yeah.
because Kelsey's gonna be good. Like
I
you can
just
say
like
whatever, but he's gonna be. I don't have to worry about tight end. He's gonna be a great pass catcher.
and I
Gonna
get
give
that
me
the
a 15,
difference
20 a game.
between him and like Andrews or Kittle is high, but the round difference from where you're getting those guys is also high too.
Hmm.
So I think that's something to take into account that you can get really, really good tight ends later in drafts. Like you don't have to sell out for a Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, that's
Moving
fair.
on to the second round, I mean, you made the correct pick in
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill. And then we saw some interesting stuff go down. We saw a run on the running backs. Denborough taking Josh Jacobs over Bijan Robinson is perhaps the miss of the draft. Um,
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's a really, really bad selection. Bijan
Hmm.
Robinson is probably the second best running back this year in fantasy football.
Or Nash.
He's close to Austin Eckler and Saquon Barkley. Like any configuration of those guys is fine by me. But
Yeah.
it's yeah.
What do you think
We
of Pollard 13th overall?
so yeah, I mean, I'm more and more high on Pollard by the day. I mean, his receiving upside is pretty electric. His yards per carry was really, really good. Um, I don't know if he's gonna see the workload that people think he's gonna see.
Yeah.
Um, but I do like him. And I think going back to Bijan, like just because I want to set the record straight, I think people see him as a risk because he's a rookie. But I think Bijan is actually probably the safest running back
That's just
of any
oh my
of
God.
any of the top. Okay, so think about it, right? First and foremost, we already know that the running back position is not entirely based on the
Hmm.
skill of the prospect, which, by the way, Bijan has plenty of skill, right? The Falcons led the league in rushing attempts and rushes of more than 5 yards last year. There's draft capital. They spent what was it, the seventh overall pick on him, eighth overall
Something like
pick.
that. Yeah.
Um, we know he's going to see the ball. He has elite receiving upside that Tyler Algier doesn't have, which is his competition in the backfield. And he's young, right? We see young running backs tend to do better than all other. Um, I think he's far more safe than people are willing to acknowledge. Like taking a rookie wide receiver is a risk. I think Bijan Robinson's value is pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think saying that a guy who has yet to play a single game in the NFL is the safest player to pick is a bit of a stretch, considering you've not
Of
seen how
course,
he's going to be using
it's
that
just
offense or
we
anything.
already know. I think we already know what is going to happen with him in that offense. We
And
already know what we're going to see.
yeah, it's fair, but whatever. I do think it'll be
I,
good. I was considering taking him over Tyreek, but I was like, I don't want a running back right now. So,
yeah.
you know,
And anybody looking for fantasy football strategy, obviously, wide receivers are far, far, far more valuable this year than ever before.
mhm.
Um, if you can get a top guy, Christian McCaffrey's the best. Um, if you can get a top guy early or couple of top guys early, that is preferable at running back. But if you don't, the best option is typically going to be to then wait on running back. And you'll see that's sort of what James and I did.
Yeah.
That's proven to be the way to go in recent years.
Yeah.
But
Especially this year, I'd say.
in this case, there was a run on the running backs. Derrick Henry goes, which I don't hate, but I don't love either.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think Tony Pollard's good, a bit of a reach,
I
as is
love
Nick Chubb.
Saquon though. I'm surprised.
But
I would
yeah,
not have taken Chubb, Pollard, or Henry over Saquon.
Saquon at the top of the third when he
It's
should
insane.
have gone ahead of Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry is pretty insane.
Yeah.
I think the other interesting thing is for myself and Green Machine, getting the value of Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb in the late second round is pretty elite, considering that those are two guys that go in the first round of a lot of drafts.
Yeah.
And then no quarterbacks. We saw
the
and then you go to the
top
third
tier
round.
guys won the first rounds.
Yeah.
Nash took Burrow in the second round pick. What is that? 21 overall.
Yeah. So I mean, technically I didn't make that pick.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into the issues with CBS fantasy. If you are starting a fantasy football league, do it anywhere but CBS fantasy.
Do it by hand, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather use a newspaper and calculate the scores myself
and wait for the newspaper to come in. Yeah, to look at the stats.
Yeah.
But I agree.
No, so Joe Burrow did end up being a pretty good pick. I was gonna take Lamar Jackson, but I think in a 2-quarterback league, getting one of the elite quarterbacks when the value starts to dry up, obviously I wouldn't call AJ Brown dry value, but as you can see, I had my eye on somebody else. So I think getting an elite wide receiver is good. Again, like the value of Saquon and Devontae Adams there is pretty crazy. And then you obviously want to talk about the back end of that round.
Yeah, so I'm obviously super high on Garrett Wilson, 1,000-yard receiver last year, rookie of the year with the worst quarterback play in the league. Got Aaron Rodgers. We're still waiting to see how that connection is going to be, but so far it seems, from what I've seen, it seems like they're doing fine, and Rodgers doesn't hate his guts, which is pretty good. But Garrett Wilson, end of the third round, I was super happy with. I was seriously considering taking him over Tyreek Hill. That's how high I am. But I figured there might have been a chance I could get him late. I thought you were gonna take him though, Nash. So I was like, nah, I didn't think I'd get him. But
so you actually think? I mean, in hindsight, I could have taken Wilson over Burrow. I don't know.
I think you needed that elite quarterback though.
Yeah, I do, and I think the guy who I ended up getting is pretty solid.
Yeah. But yeah, Garrett Wilson.
Here's the biggest thing that I'm talking about. So you look at Ted's Titans, you look at Jay Peaster, taking Dameon Pierce in the third round when you've got elite level talent like AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown still on the board is blasphemous, right? Obviously the old way of thinking is that because the least amount of talented running backs are in the league compared to how many roster spots you need to fill, you have to take running backs early, right? But the issue with that is if you don't get an elite running back, the guys in the top 2 rounds, typically, sometimes it's even dry by the end of the second round, then the value of guys in rounds 3 through 6 isn't worth it. 3 through 8 even, typically, right? Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon, their value is all based off of their guaranteed workload and not based off of production that it is assumed that they will have, right? So it's just the wrong way to go about your draft if you are about to make a team.
I also, as far as I can see what the vision of Dameon Pierce, obviously that team's on the come up, rookie quarterback, might rely on the running game a little bit, but he was, and you see all these highlights of him breaking a ton of tackles, but he was one of the worst, just straight up efficiency wise runners last year. which was kind of rough. And so and they picked up, who'd they pick up running back wise? I forget who they have in that backfield. Let me check. But so I was high on him in the beginning of the draft process. They got Singletary. That's who it was.
Yeah. And
But I
Singletary's
kind of,
good.
yeah, and he's really not Singletary's not the worst. So I kind of got lower on Damian Pierce and I avoided him really at all costs. But
Plus,
yeah, third round definitely
yeah.
would have waited to like fifth, sixth for sure. So
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, you took Cup,
Again,
fourth round,
yeah.
fourth
So
round value for Cup is
getting
pretty
Amon-Ra
good.
St. Brown for you is pretty.
Yeah, I
Now,
love that.
honestly, here I didn't really agree with what most of the guys were doing.
Yeah,
Um, I just felt, I like the Jalen Waddle pick at the end of the fourth. I think Fields it's a bit of a reach, just a smidge
I don't hate it that much though.
based off. I don't hate it that much, but I think Christian Watson is a really bad pick, like
That early,
atrociously
yeah.
bad. Um, Ramondre Stevenson is a really bad pick that early. Um,
hmm
Jameer Gibbs, I don't hate. I actually like him more than I like him more than Damian Pierce. I like him more than Ramondre. I like him
Yeah.
more than Joe Mixon. But still a bit of a reach. Like just the running back value there isn't good. And then for me, getting Cooper Cup, who is, pre-injury, right? The top 5 players in fantasy are Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Travis Kelce, and Cooper Cup.
Non-injury wise, yeah.
Then and then you go Tyreek Hill and Austin Eckler. Bijan Robinson potentially in there as well. But Cooper Cup is a guy who his ceiling is crazy, right? And looking at, you want to win your league as opposed to just be middling, right? Obviously there's injury concerns, there's age concerns, there's quarterback concerns. There's a lot of concerns, but at his peak, Cooper Cup could be the best wide receiver in the NFL, right? And so if he is playing at that level, the value there is too hard to pass up. Would you agree when you say you should be drafting
Yeah.
for ceiling?
hmm
And then you make floor plays, you make
Yeah,
plays
it's kind of you got
where
to find a
you're
nice
yeah,
balance.
you make safe plays during the season once you
hmm
can actually determine who is safe and who's not
Yeah.
safe. Because at the
Yeah, like
beginning of the season,
we'll figure out
it's
the extent of Cup's injury, I guess, pretty early on.
mhm,
If he'll miss a couple games, he'll come back. Stafford, who knows with that elbow, apparently is like really healthy. The Rams will suck. He's
mhm.
like the only guy on that offense too, so I'm kind of interested to see how defenses play him, and obviously we'll see how he comes back. But yeah, definitely a good value for you there. I really like that. But
Yeah, I mean, it could blow up in my face, but
yeah,
it is what it is. And then I know you had some strong opinions about round 5, so I want to hear those.
yeah. Um, I love Olave. I
Hmm.
was hoping he would fall to me. I was looking for him and Garrett Wilson were my two guys. Garrett Wilson was waiting for. Obviously, he honestly fell a lot later than I thought he would. But I really wasn't in a great position to take him. I love Mark Andrews. Like Mark Andrews, I do like the point you made about like the Kelsey whole like round difference thing. I think Mark Andrews is a really good pick for you there. Amari Cooper, I think he kind of goes under the radar. I think just kind of he's kind of a boring name, gets 1,000 yards every year. I really do like him. I think Deshaun
He's sort of the
Watson,
Mike Evans of the
yeah,
modern
yeah,
game.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, looking at Mark Andrews, the second best tight end in the NFL, and it's a 4 round difference from where he's taken to where Kelsey's taken. I mean, the value is just crazy. Um, I really like the Herbert pick because I was going to think about taking
yeah,
solidify my 2 quarterbacks. And
hmm
then you look at the latter half of that round, Najee Harris. Everybody knows this film statistics have proven that he's not a good running back, right? So while he may have guaranteed production, we know that he's not good at the position. That you're limiting his ceiling as a player. Travis Etienne, good, but not spectacular either, right? I do like your Aaron Jones pick just
Yeah.
because I think Aaron Jones does have a high ceiling.
I
Aaron
think they're
Jones has
gonna
proven
rely pretty
he's a
heavily.
top
Jordan Love.
he's a top back.
Yeah.
Whereas like some of these guys are valued highly not because
Yeah.
they've proven anything, but because they've proven
Yeah. Aaron Jones'
that they'll
rushing
get carries.
upside is pretty insane too. They're put him in the
Yeah.
slot. They're put him all around. Jordan Love's gonna want that guy. He's gonna have Christian Watson. He's more of a deep threat. He's gonna want that guy he can rely to, on short
Yeah.
yardage and stuff. So yeah, I really like that pick, and I'm super super high on him. But yeah, and then I took Trevor Lawrence right after that. I think Trevor Lawrence is a sneaky MVP. I mean, I don't know if sneaky is really the right word, but I think he's definitely an MVP candidate up there. Do you remember what he was ranked in the odds?
Ooh,
You
I
want to pull
got
that
you.
back up, but yeah, I'm super
It's
high on him, and I think he can make an MVP push. He's only gotten better. He was really not. You look at the stats, and he was pretty rough his rookie year, but like overall, he wasn't the worst, especially with what he was dealing with. Urban Meyer, that horrible receiver core. Last year he was really good. Won the division, made the playoffs. This year got Calvin Ridley, Tank Bigsby, improved O line.
okay, so
Horrible division.
he's tied for seventh in odds with Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers,
yeah,
behind like the top six, like pretty consensus
yeah.
like best
Okay, yeah.
quarterbacks.
So sneaky
Um,
MVP probably isn't the right word, but he's definitely an MVP candidate for sure. So I'm super excited for that. But Madison, what are your thoughts on Madison? Because
yeah, I
I
mean
was kind of
that's a
torn on him.
horrible pick,
Hmm.
right? Like obviously Alexander Madison, not the worst player, guaranteed some production, guaranteed some receiving production, right? But he's not a top talent.
Uh-huh.
And you look at the talent around him, right? T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, TJ Hawkinson, a top 5 tight end. DJ Moore. If you could even scroll down for me a little bit. Darren Waller, Keenan Allen,
Justin
Debo
Tucker.
Samuel, all guys, you know, quarterbacks with top 10 upside,
Yeah.
receivers who have been top 10 receivers. DK Metcalf, all guys who were stellar last year, not going in front of a guy like Alexander Madison, who's never even been a full-time starter,
Yeah. I think
based
the
on
whole thing for him is just
production.
there's nobody else there.
And obviously the big thing to acknowledge is that fantasy football is much different than actual football,
Hmm.
right? If we were building teams based off of how good we thought the players were, the drafts would look a lot different than they do. But you have to use that selectively in certain situations, because when you look at it like this, where you end up taking a guy like Alexander Madison in the 6th round of an 8-man league, it's just
It's a really
getting out of hand.
fifth round.
And I hope that
Fourth
Foxborough
round.
Ted is not a listener. He's like 90, so he shouldn't be. But he had maybe the worst draft I've ever seen from a guy who like actually is supposed to know what he's doing.
Well, look what he took.
I mean,
Look who he took the next round.
is abysmal. He takes a kicker in the 7th round. I mean,
Well, we just lost the listener. All right, thanks, Nash.
I've
Yeah.
got to like. There's a joke I'm thinking of, but I'm not gonna make.
Okay, good choice. But yeah, honestly, we could go on and on. We could critique every player in the draft. You
Yeah,
could name a single player and we could talk for 10
yeah.
minutes about them fantasy wise. But
That's the beauty
um
of
it's the
our
beauty of fantasy
relationship,
football
James.
and our relationship. Yep.
Uh, I
And
do want you to talk about Anthony Richardson for a second
Anthony
before
Richardson.
we move on.
Yeah, so I was pissed when I didn't even know when I picked, let's see, 5 picks later, I had no clue
You
you'd
didn't even
taken him.
realize.
Because I got away from my computer for like a minute or two, and I came back. And I was like, okay,
Yeah, I
let's
got
get
an.
Richardson next round. And then I was like, oh my god, Nash took Anthony Richardson because I know you're the only person in this draft that would have taken him too. But Nash got him
Because
7th round. I really love the pick. People might say it's a reach, but you just get the guys you want, and then you know are
it's
going to be
not.
good. But
And
the
this is
rushing,
a situation where football talent isn't necessarily equivalent to
Yeah,
fantasy
but
value,
he is
right?
extremely talented. Just a matter of
Yeah,
putting it
he
all
is.
together.
Yeah, well, but he's guaranteed production in
Yeah,
fantasy because he's going to run the
because of
ball.
his risk. Yeah,
Um,
last year or not last year, 2 years ago, I took Jalen Hurts in this same league. Probably even later. It might have been like round 8 or 9. After his rookie year, he was very low regarded and low respect. Kind of everyone thought he kind of sucked, but I literally said it doesn't matter. He could be the worst quarterback in the league, but he has a rushing upside, so he will be a top 10 quarterback.
I
And
think
there
I
he was. He was
disagreed with
like,
you, didn't I?
I don't. Well, you weren't the same. I don't really know because it was 2 years ago. It wasn't last year.
With Hertz,
Yeah, I did because I didn't have him last year. But 2 years ago, I took him and I was like, people might think he sucks. I'm like, he can suck for all I care. He has the rushing upside. He will be a top 10 quarterback, and he finished like number 3 or 2 or something like that. So I do kind of feel that same way with Richardson. Obviously the potential's there. As of this moment, he's not a great quarterback. We'll see when he actually steps out on the field, but the upside's definitely there. Again, who knows? He's really a wild card, but his floor is definitely a lot higher than a lot of people think. And Nash and I really agree on that. So you suck, Nash, for taking him, but
yeah, you were
definitely got.
so mad.
I know I was really mad. I was like, dude, that was with one dude I wanted to get. I mean, him and Garrett Wilson were like my guys that I
And
was like
then,
really wanted
and
to get.
I don't think we need to argue about this because, like, but then that sort of forced you to make the one pick in your entire draft that I didn't like
Miles
of
Sanders,
yours, which is
which
Miles
I
Sanders.
loved. I love Miles Sanders pick.
I, yeah, I
No
mean,
competition on that
if you're
team.
gonna go, if you're gonna go zero RB draft strategy, you have to commit. And this man did not commit. This
You took
man,
7 wide receivers and had one running back at one point.
and guess what? And guess what? I'm gonna be sitting at the top of the standings
Yeah, because
all
you're gonna
year
have to
because of it.
rest 3 of them. You're gonna have a. You know what, Nash? You know what you're gonna have? You're gonna have the thing where if you tie, you're gonna win because then you're gonna have higher bench points because all your receivers are gonna be racking up points in the bench. So I'm
Hey
happy for you
James,
there.
listen to me. Listen to
Really
me.
am.
When Tyreek Hill hurts himself running too
Okay,
fast on the
yeah.
treadmill,
Or
and
when he gets suspended for doing something
Amon
in
Ross St.
Miami
Brown
club.
gets caught up in Jamison Williams' gambling ring,
Okay, yeah. Let's just pray on all their downfalls,
you're
though, don't
you're
we?
gonna. I'm not preying on their downfalls.
Looks like
I'm
we're
just
not getting an
saying.
Amon Ra
I'm
feature on the
just saying.
pod. Damn.
Um, but or we're
Oh
not
my
getting a
god.
Jamison Williams feature either.
Yeah, man, that's
Shout out
we were
Jamison
so
Williams.
close. But yeah.
um,
Anyways, I I think we should wrap this
yeah,
fantasy thing up. Obviously, like I
we
just
could
said a
go
couple
more in
minutes ago, we
depth.
could yeah. But that's
Do
our
you want to do you
fantasy
want to
episode this
switch and
year.
just show them our teams real quick,
Yeah, sure.
like our full teams, or
Yeah. Yeah,
and
so
then we'll
my
move on. We'll
team,
talk. We'll give
1 minute each for team. All right, I got the Goff and Amon-Ra
yeah.
stack.
Okay.
T-Law, like I said, MVP candidate. My running backs, I got James Conner really late, which I honestly didn't know I liked as much as I did. Aaron Jones, I love. Miles Sanders, we just talked about him. But these 4 studs right here: Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Travis Kelce. And you can honestly probably include DK in that. These are the guys who are going to carry me to the back-to-back fantasy football championship. And I'm calling it here. I will finish 7 places above Nash. Nash will be last place. I'll be
That's
first. I'm
crazy.
joking. I'm joking. But yeah, these 4 guys, my first 4 picks are going to take me to the promised land. So, yeah. Nash, Mahomes Depot.
All right, there we go. Mahomes Depot. So looking at it, obviously we went heavy on the wide receivers.
That's an
I
understatement.
did do a little bit of sketchy business, putting Cooper Cup on the injured reserve. I'm told I might get yelled at by the admin about that from
Yeah.
James. But I think the biggest thing for me, I went McCaffrey early, got my one really good running back, and then I just took the best player available where I saw the best value, the highest ceiling. Mark Andrews, I think a big part of my team. Stephon Diggs was tremendous value. DJ Moore, Cooper Cup. I think McLaurin's big playability is very, very exciting. I like Drake London a lot as a second-year player to break out. Chris Godwin. It doesn't show this here, but I've picked up Michael Pittman to stack him with Anthony Richardson.
Who'd you
And
drop?
then
Fryermuth.
I know nobody because I put Cup on
Oh,
IR.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then at the quarterback spots, I've got one safer option in Joe Burrow, a proven talent, and then one guy who could legitimately win me my league in Anthony Richardson. And then just to end it off, if you're gonna go zero RB, you look for those late round talents, those guys who have production, have some skill. You look at Khalil Herbert on my bench. You look at James Cook, both guys, young guys who could actually have surprisingly good years this year.
Yeah.
Uh,
Also, Nash, real quick, just so you know, you can put another player in your lineup. By the way, you're one player short.
oh, bet.
Yeah.
Bet.
So that's what Pittman will fit in your bench, and then you can put one of these guys in. So yeah, that's the fantasy our fantasy program. I'm gonna stop the share. We're still recording. Yes, we are. But
How
yeah,
far in are we?
I didn't set the time, but I think we're like 30 minutes. So you can
Okay.
go. It'll be
Well,
a
let's
nice
give
little quick one. But what do you want to talk about? You want to go college
let's
football?
talk about college football. I'll have to pull up the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, first week of college football this past weekend.
mhm.
Awesome, it's back. There
Let's hear your
were
thoughts while I fix my fantasy football lineup. Um,
yeah, it's a great time to do that. Yeah, I mean, it started off actually last week. It started off with USC and the Caleb Williams show back at it again. They are 2-0 now because like they played like the earlier game or the week earlier
the
game.
week 0, yeah.
And Caleb Williams, again, Heisman favorite pretty heavily. Well, I guess there's a guy that I'm about to mention in a couple of seconds that is right there with him. But yeah, Caleb Williams doing his thing. Got to be as much of a lock to win the Heisman as you can possibly be at week 1 in the season.
Wow, wow,
But
wow, 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 wow.
what?
Okay.
That's not a hot
Pump
take at
the
all.
brakes.
That's not a hot take.
Well, as much of a lot, I mean, he's definitely the favorite. Um, but I think to call him as much of a lock as there's been in a long time,
Yes.
not only discredits one of the best quarterback prospects of the last 5 years in Drake May,
That's just not. Oh my
um,
gosh.
but also
Shadeur
you're forgetting
Sanders.
about a guy who played 129 snaps
Travis
this
Hunter.
past Saturday. Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna say Shadeur Sanders, but yeah. Anyways,
That's
that Colorado team. I was gonna get to them, but we
yeah.
can do it now.
Neon Deion Sanders continues
Mm-hmm.
to impress. Travis Hunter. I mean, didn't Dion in an interview say like he's him or something?
Yeah. Well, do you see that thing
He's,
where like they don't put captains on their jerseys? They put like L for leader and D for dogs.
that's so funny.
I know.
Did you
So
see their
Travis Hunter's got a
practice
D.
jerseys have their Instagram handles on them?
Oh yeah, that's so corny. That's so corny.
But nah, Coach Prime is
That was pretty
trying all
electric
kinds
game.
of new things. Yeah, I mean, everybody had already counted Colorado out. They call Shadeur Sanders an FCS quarterback. They discounted all the talent that they brought in from Jackson State. And I mean, Travis Hunter is not only one of the best receivers in the country, but also one of the best cornerbacks. Do you think
Yeah.
he'll be the number one prospect
I
going
mean,
into
it's gonna be
next year's
Caleb
draft?
Williams, but like,
No, because Hunter's not draft eligible for another year. I think I'm talking
oh, for
about
in two
the
years.
draft after. Yeah,
I mean, who's in that class? No, there's this one dude at LSU. I think his name's Perkins, who is like insane pass rusher. But I
yeah,
imagine, I mean, at this rate, it
he's
would
top
probably be
five for
Travis Hunter.
sure.
Let me look at the draft. So that would be
Because
2025.
yeah, I mean, it's just something we haven't seen in a very, very long time. And he
Mm-hmm.
could be, I mean, who was the last defensive player to win a Heisman? Was it
God,
Charles Woodson?
that sounds right.
If
Oof.
it's Charles Woodson, I am going to pat myself on the back. Let me tell
All
you.
right. Last defensive
I
Heisman
got it.
winner. It was Charles Woodson. I got it, buddy.
USC.
Nice. Yes, I believe so.
But yeah, I think the
Or it
biggest
was
thing
Michigan.
for
That's
Hunter.
right. It was Michigan because he played with Tom Brady.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing for Travis Hunter is staying consistent, and for that Colorado team is to, sort of keep their heads down, keep playing like the underdogs. I think
Hmm.
that's the kind of team that with some hype could fall apart. Could fall apart. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking up the 2025 NFL. It's kind of, I mean, obviously hard to tell, but like he's not. They really don't like. Seems like they don't update much. As far as quarterbacks though, this can kind of go into our next game this past weekend. Cade Klubnik is the number one quarterback in 25 class. I watched that game last night. Clemson Duke. That was probably the worst game I've ever seen a football team play. Obviously probably not that, but like that is one of the worst games I've ever seen a team play, and that was Clemson last night. I mean, Cade Klubnik was pretty rough. I mean, he wasn't the worst in the world, but just they had like two red zone fumbles, two red zone missed field goals, a pick to end the half that would have gotten them points. Clemson was ranked number 9, I believe.
9.
And yeah, and so that was kind of concerning. I can see the stuff with Klubnik, but he really did not look great at all yesterday, which was pretty rough. But he is the number one prospect in the 2025 class. The guy I mentioned, Perkins, is number 14, but
He's
I remember
crazy.
I remember watching him last year. He was a freshman last year, and be like, yeah, that dude's gonna be the number one overall pick. So I wouldn't be surprised if he
Um,
shot the rankings, but yeah.
yeah, I like. I mean, I don't know what to equate Clemson's performance. I mean, Cade Klubnik
God,
played
rough.
like, I mean, he played like he just was colorblind and didn't see the blue jerseys. I mean,
Yeah,
he's like me out there.
yeah.
Um, but and then the running backs. It's like they had what's the? It's like they had vegetable oil in their hands. Yeah,
For
it's just
Clemson,
like,
Will Shipley, yeah.
yeah, like
Yep.
it's just a horrific performance. And like the defense was bad, but not so bad. They were getting put in a lot of bad spots.
Hmm.
Um, and Duke didn't
Yeah.
really do anything
I
special. They
did,
just
yeah, I did love the Duke defense. So I thought my dad and I were watching the game last night. He mentioned they were a very good like open field tackling team, like as far as their safeties, which was very definitely helped them in the long run the game yesterday. But
got
as far
out
as their
Duke linebacker memorable factor.
really, that's a name.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyways, their offense, Riley Leonard, which is apparently Riley Leonard's a number 3 quarterback in this year's class, according to Mel Kiper. I had no clue until I heard that in the broadcasters today. Really was not. He had that nice run for the touchdown, but wasn't extremely impressed with him. Obviously, it's just week 1, but as far as their offense, it's just like whatever. But we could spend a million minutes talking about this game. But I mean, what else happens this past weekend? You got North Carolina, South Carolina. Drake May had a pretty good game. Spencer
That was the game day
Rattler,
game, correct?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler couldn't do much behind his O line was just getting torched. I mean, it was. I think he got sacked 9 times. Yeah, they got sacked
Yeah.
9 times. Really, I
Can't do
didn't think
anything
Spencer
with
Rattler
that.
played that horrible, but Drake May. Honestly, now that I remember it, watching him, he didn't play the greatest game ever. Kind of had some rough throws, but it's week 1. We'll see how that affects his stock and Heisman campaign. But yeah, LSU, Florida State. That happened
Oh
too.
yeah. I mean, LSU looked bad, but more importantly, FSU looked dangerous. Um, you
Hmm.
know, they
Yeah,
just looked electric on the offensive end. Um, Jordan Travis looked elite.
yeah,
Um,
yep.
I thought their defense, Braden Fisk was good.
Hmm.
Their whole defensive line, Josh Farmer, Daryl Jackson. Um, is it Darrell? Daryl?
I'm not sure.
Um, their whole defensive line looked
Yeah,
stellar.
yeah, but it's yeah. As far
Um,
as big time games last weekend, that pretty much. I mean, Florida, Utah won that pretty easily.
and that puts, I mean, Florida State, especially with how bad Clemson looked, if
Yeah.
they run through the ACC,
Hmm. Yeah,
That's a
no
playoff
divisions
team.
anymore in the
That's a
ACC.
playoff team.
Yeah, they're ranked
Um,
4 now, by the way.
yeah, they're ranked
Um,
4 now.
yeah.
And of course Brian Kelly said they were gonna beat the brakes off
Oh, of
of.
course, dude. Brian Kelly's just a guy's a jerk.
But yeah, and
I mean,
Clemson plummets to 25 after a week.
yep. Duke up to
But I mean,
21.
if they can beat Florida State, or if Florida State can beat Clemson and Duke, and then avoid
Mhm.
upsets against the likes of Miami, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, the
Go
like,
Orange.
Florida as well, then they could be looking at a playoff team.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, if they lose a single game, they're pretty much out of contention.
Yeah. I'd say
But
that's true because the ACC definitely isn't looking the strongest this year, but I think they could lose one game. I mean, depends how they
no,
lose, and then win the ACC and get in. Because if
I don't see it.
they'll have wins against. I mean, it depends who they lose to, but I can see it. Teams, if you're a Power Five team and have one loss, you're gonna get in generally, and if you win your conference, you're gonna get in. That's just how it ends up
I don't know. I
being.
just think
But
because I think the committee will, and we should get on the podcast.
you got it.
My professor from New York,
Yeah. Who's on the
um,
committee, right?
he's on the committee,
Yeah.
to get a little insight on that potentially. But I mean, the conference is so bad, um,
Yeah. I
that
mean,
like
still,
I think they have to take that into account. Where it's like, you know, I think if any team, Duke, could do it, or Florida State runs the gauntlet,
yeah.
then they will get in. But other than that, I don't know if we'll see an ACC team.
Yeah, we'll see. I think if you're a Power Five team with one loss and you win your conference, you'll get in. I don't think it really matters who you lose to, but obviously we'll see. It's week 1. We can say all this stuff, and Florida State could lose 5 games and be one of the worst teams in the ACC. Who knows? That's just how it ends up going with the college football season sometimes. So that's the thing. Like week 1 rankings really don't mean anything. Like you'll see like an unranked matchup between 2 Power 5 teams, and like it could end up being like a huge game at the end of the
Yeah,
year. Which I think that's why I think week 1's. I mean, it's one of the more like important weeks. You can look back and be like, oh, these two teams are unranked at the time, but by the
yeah.
time week 11 comes, it was a 10
I
versus
mean, yeah.
4 or whatever,
You look
So
at Cincinnati,
yeah,
um, too, like
mm-hmm. But
a couple years ago. Um,
yeah,
and then a lot of teams that looked really promising. Kansas, not to be a bandwagon, but the defense started off a little shaky, but they've got tons of offensive talent.
against powerhouse
Jalen
Missouri State.
Daniels, Jalen Daniels didn't even play.
Mm. Oh,
Devin
Bean
Neal took his
played.
first. Yeah, Devin Neal took his first touch of the season, like 40 yards for a touchdown.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it was a pretty electric performance. Arizona State was super promising.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Rashada made his debut. They did barely beat Southern Utah, which is a little sketchy. But I think in terms of in years to come, I think Jaden Rashada is the name to know whether he stays at Arizona State or hits the portal.
Also, shout out the Pac-12 for winning literally every single game. The Pac-12, which will not be a thing in 1 to 2 years. But yeah, every single
1 year.
Pac-12 team.
1 year.
1 year. Or are like Cal and stuff, are they joining next year or is it in 2 years? I feel like it's in 2 years. I know
I don't
obviously
know.
UNC and stuff are joining next year. I don't know, but in the near future, the Pac-12 will
Not
not look
exist.
either not exist or not look anything like it looks now. But yeah, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 and 0. Go Washington, go UW. Utah, like we said, got that win. USC, Caleb Williams. Definitely some cool teams there. But Oregon State, DJ Uiagalelei too. Shout him out.
Shout out the
But
Clemson transfer. Cade Klubnik pushed him out, and it's looking
yeah,
like maybe it would have been the better decision to go with a veteran.
but
Even
yeah,
though
I
he
got
wasn't great at Clemson, he was a bit of a disappointment.
yeah, definitely a high. I mean, it's hard to follow Trevor Lawrence, but Yeah, I got nothing else to say about college football and really anything else for this spot. If
Yeah,
you got
I mean,
anything else,
I think we're excited to bring you all of you week 1 NFL content. We'll
Yep.
definitely have a ton to say.
Yeah.
Potentially some debate between the two of us
Who the Chiefs got
on
week
that
1?
front. Lions first game.
Oh,
You should know that. Come on.
I can't believe I just asked
Come
that
on.
question.
Listen,
Yeah.
listen. I'm gonna make you look real bad for saying that.
Don't even. I've literally said a million times I played in the Lions. That's just I can't believe I asked it. I wasn't thinking. All right.
Yeah. Well, you need to be thinking more.
Yeah, apparently,
if you're gonna be the co-host of Takes from the Lakes podcast.
You're right. My fault, little bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got. It seems like that's all you got too, Nash. And
it was good to be back. Good to bring some more Takes from the Lakes content. No guests, but I think the two of us are enough.
Should suffice.
Either way. And I think that's all we've got. Make sure to follow our TikTok page, our Instagram page. Follow us on Spotify. Check out our YouTube.
Subscribe to YouTube.
All of the things.
Definitely check this one out on YouTube for the visual of the draft and stuff in our teams.
Yeah. But yeah, we're very excited to bring you even more exciting stuff. And thanks for listening. Signing off now.
Yep. See ya.